evening, everyone. Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of May 19th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciak, will you take the roll, please?
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young. Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath. Ms. Moulton. Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hebeck.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Fantini.
I move to excuse the absences of Councilman Young, Councilmember Cleveland McGrath, and Councilmember Moulton.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Fantini to excuse Councilmember Young, Moulton, and Cleveland McGrath. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, announcements and committee reports. I've got a few announcements, and the one that I think is starting to sound a little bit like a broken record, but just passing on an update from 3 p.m. today from Skagit County that the ferry to Guaymas Island is still out, and the estimated return. This is the car ferry that's out for its regular repair. But the date to deviate from that they have passed along is Friday, June 6th as the best estimate for return to service for that ferry, because I know it impacts both sides of that ferry. Also, on a lighter note, today is the 134th anniversary of the incorporation of the city of Anacortes. So on this date, in 1891, Anacortes officially became a city. So I'd encourage you to visit the Anacortes Museum or website to see their extensive collection of photos, exhibits celebrating the history of Anacortes. Also, fun week, this is National Public Works Week. The Anacortes Public Works Department is responsible for the streets, city facilities, city fleet, garbage and recycling collection, stormwater management, wastewater collection and treatment, drinking water production and distribution. So when you turn your water, turn on your faucet, flush the toilet, drive on the street, use a sidewalk, use a city building, call police or fire, Public Works was behind the scenes making that service uninterrupted. We take pride in the work we do, and although often not the most glamorous of work, our community receives all these services by a dedicated staff of 78 Public Works professionals. So please join me in thanking the Public Works staff this week for their commitment to serving our community 365 days a year. Also, Memorial Day is coming up this weekend. So the solid waste, speaking of Public Works, the solid waste schedule there'll be no solid waste service on Monday. Collection will take place on Tuesday, May 27th, and waste management follows our schedule for recycling and yard waste pickup. City offices will also be closed in recognition of Memorial Day. And since it is Memorial Day coming up, lastly, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that Memorial Day is coming up. And for many of us, it is the unofficial start of summer, time to get outside, fire up the grill, enjoy a long weekend. And that's good. We've earned it, but I hope everyone takes a moment to remember what the holiday is truly about. So for me, it's personal. During my time in uniform, I lost 6 close friends and many other colleagues. Each one of them was brave, dedicated, and gone too soon. I carry their memory with me every day, and especially on Memorial Day. So whether you know somebody who served or not, I hope you take a quiet moment to reflect and honor the fallen and remember the cost of the freedoms we enjoy. And as always, be safe out there. So hope everyone has an enjoyable Memorial Day weekend. Okay, that's all for me. And I heard Public Works Committee was canceled earlier. So next up would be Parks and Recreation Committee report.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Hubick.
Thank you. Parks and Rec met on Thursday the 15th. Councilmember McDougall and myself were there, along with Lunsford, South, Johnson, and Vokes on staff. This is the time of year where the Parks Department gets really, really busy. So this will be kind of a long update. There's a lot of seasonal hires that are starting. Parks and Rec staff is fully hired for the summer, so you'll see a lot more people out mowing, cleaning up the parks trails. If you notice during the summer that there are any specific trash cans that need to get updated or picked up, please make sure to let us know. Like I said, this is the time of year that it just gets really, really busy. Washington Park is fully booked for any weekend that can actually still be reserved. So not officially the first start of summer yet, but the weekends are booked solid, which is great news. This is not counting, the 25 first come, first served spots that are out there, but that's really, really exciting to be that full at this point. There was an update given around the conversations that are had about repairing the boardwalk out at Ship Harbor. So the city, the Port of Anacortes, and the Samus Nation have been making sure that everybody's on the same page. They are working together to get some drawings done and to make sure that everybody understands what the next steps are for grant writing. Looking at this project and depending on what decisions get made for what to actually build, this could be anywhere from 1.2 to 2.4 million. So grants are extra important, and it is very possible that we'll be phasing in parts of this project. Green burials are being discussed at the cemetery, and that is a conversation that will be brought to council soon. Summer programs are up and running for registration, so if you have kiddos that need something to do over the summer, get them signed up now. Things like youth soccer are filling up quickly. Conversations are being had around whether or not sponsorships could be offered to the general public or businesses for the leagues to kind of offset some of the cost to parents. So for example, having industry or business partners put a logo on baseball shirts, for example. Some upcoming events that are happening. Kids fishing is happening out at Heart Lake on 5/31 at 7 a.m. Bark in the Park is happening June 14th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. out at Storvik. Kids Are Best Fest also happening 10 to 2 out at Storvik, but a month later on July 12th. The staff and community has been meeting around West 6th Park. I think Councilmember Fantini brought that up. There was a second meeting discussing 4 different options, and about 20 people were there. Park staff is always welcome to accept phone calls from constituents in the neighborhood that may not have been able to meet any of those, have been able to meet any of those meetings. And then we had a bit more of an extended conversation around the bathrooms out of the skate park. Just a reminder that there is a conversation happening at council and a bigger presentation on June 2nd. So in order for staff to be best prepared, if any of us up here at the dais have questions that you would like to have staff bring information on, please let them know. Right now, they are going to be having a lot of information to share with us. I won't go into too much of that, but one of the things that we're up against is that L&I, Labor and Industries, doesn't think that the Portland Loos actually meet ADA turning radius requirements. So there are a lot of decisions that need to be made around that. And that's pretty much it. Busy time of year.
Okay, questions for Parks and Rec? All right, next is Economic Development Committee. We have a report.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Hubick.
Me too. Councilmember Young and I were there. This one is much shorter. We wrapped up the review of the report that Western gave us. Staff has sent minor revisions over, and so council members will be reviewing the document over the next few months and finding next steps for staff and council to take in implementing recommendations.
Okay, any questions there? Any other council reports, committee reports I may have missed? Announcements? Okay, item 3D is a housing board appointment, and this is an announcement. So Jim English was appointed on September 3rd, 2024, and that was to fill Amanda Hubick's position, and he resigned his post effective April 24th. So I've appointed Zua Mu to replace Mr. English for the remainder of his term through December of this year. So I thank you, Zoa, for filling in and volunteering. So appreciate that. All right, and next up, and oh, she's here. You can wave, and so the council can see you. Okay, we've seen you here before. All right. Next, public comment. I didn't have any. This is an opportunity for any member who wishes to address the council. Anything that's not on our agenda. I know quite a few of you are here probably for the senior center report. Anybody want to address council? Looking online. Okay, we will move on to our consent agenda. Consent agenda items A and B. Council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Fantini.
I move we approve the consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fantini, a second by Mr. McDougall to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to item 6, other business. And first up is item 6A. And Mr. Wolfswinkel draws a crowd. So this item is Anacortes Senior Activity Center Community Needs Assessment Report. Mr. Wolfswinkel, you are up whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and members of the audience. I'm Carl Wolfswinkel with the Anacortes Senior Activity Center to talk about a community needs assessment report that we recently completed. I'm going to introduce our guests from Burke Consulting here momentarily. They'll be joining us via Zoom. The results of the Burke Consulting work, including center and community survey results and recommendations to improve the center and community programs for seniors in Anacortes. In collaboration with the Anacortes Senior Activity Center Foundation, who funded the project, and recommendations will inform the center's contributions to the city's comprehensive plan. I just want to say a few thank yous tonight, again to the Senior Center Foundation for funding this project. Some of our foundation members are seated in the back here. Our Community Needs Assessment Advisory Team, comprised of John Lunsford, Kathy Jamieson, Center Volunteer, Pat Buckley, and Linda Mills, both of the foundation. Community partners, about 13 of which we connected with for this study, as well as many center volunteers, Skagit County Public Health, Nutrition and Chronic Disease Prevention Programs, center and community survey respondents you'll hear about here momentarily, as well as other city departments, the museum, library, and the fire department. So without further ado, I'll introduce Maddie Immel, the project manager, and Stella Strofert. Stella, Maddie, you're on.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. I'll go ahead and share my screen.
All right, we can see it.
Awesome. Well, good evening, council members. Thank you so much for having us this evening. We're really excited to share the results from the senior needs assessment. And so I'll just start with a kind of a project overview and to echo the gratitude that Carl just shared. We began this project in September 2024 with the huge support from the Anacortes community and folks at the Senior Center. We shared the report in advance. You should all have it. And these are the key aspects of the report. So it includes key takeaways and recommendations, a deeper profile of the Senior Activity Center, including a review of their offerings and resources, a participant questionnaire where 317 kind of active participants that go to the center filled out a survey, a community profile that includes demographics and needs of the Anacortes senior community. And then lastly, an older adult community survey where we received 881 responses. This is a huge response rate. I'll just say it's about 1 in 20 seniors in the city of Anacortes. And we could not have done that without the volunteers and support from the advisory team, from the foundation, and from volunteers at the center. So again, a big thank you to everyone in the room and not in the room. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Stella to share a little bit about kind of our key takeaways from the project. And then we'll also share some of the main recommendations that came out.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, I'd love to tell you all about the top levels of what we learned throughout our needs assessment process before Maddie goes on to our recommendations. So first off, what we heard about who the Anacortes Senior Activity Center serves. ASAC serves a diverse range of older adults, serving seniors who come into the center frequently, meaning more than monthly, and many who come infrequently, possibly just a few times a year. And we learned that the majority of users come infrequently and may rely on other resources as well as the center. And as folks get older, they attend more frequently. You can see in the lower exhibit that at the bottom bar, 16% of our survey respondents over the age of 85 reported visiting ASAC twice or more a week. And users throughout our surveys describe the center as welcoming, vibrant, and essential to their daily lives. We heard from ASAC visitors that not being well informed about programming can be challenging, as well as the time of activities. So these were two things we highlighted as opportunities for ASAC to consider to invite broader participation from the senior community. We found that many seniors also receive social connection or recreation from elsewhere in the community. And there are a lot of great community resources that folks rely on in Anacortes, like the library, community action, their friends and family networks. And we talked with many of these community partners during our interviews of this project. We also know that many seniors are impacted by stigma about not wanting to be called a senior or feeling like they're a senior themselves. And this may keep folks from choosing to opt into ASAC activities. And lastly, our other implications for the center that we learned about through this process. The center currently has limited space for expansion, and as the population of Anacortes increases, the population of seniors is expected to increase by about 8,000 people by 2050. We also spoke to many community partners and believe strategic coordination between these partners and better referral systems could help seniors in Anacortes and their needs. Now I'll turn it back to Maddie to talk about our recommendations.
We developed these recommendations alongside the advisory team, as well as ASAC staff. And there's more information in the report about kind of each one, but we'll review the high level opportunities. And I first just wanted to kind of emphasize that there's many different players and roles for implementation. Of course, the staff at ASAC using the needs assessment to inform decisions about programming and operations. The foundation is a key player to identify areas where additional funding or resources are needed. And of course, you all, the city, play a great role in understanding the deeper needs of the senior population and continuing to support the center. Like Stella mentioned, we also found out throughout this process and talking to folks that the network of community partners is quite large in Anacortes, and it's an opportunity to think about the implications of this needs assessment, not just for ASAC, but also other community organizations being interested in the results. So when we think about short-term recommendations, this is, in the next 0 to 2 years, these are the high priority ones that we identified. So firstly, we recommend establishing a quarterly task force of organizations dedicated to senior needs. Like I said, there's many organizations who may not focus exclusively on seniors, but largely serve a senior population, or it's a big part of who they serve. And so having a task force where they can share resources and ideas, opportunities to get involved. We noticed that when we actually did our focus groups with organizations, there was a lot of information swapping. And so creating a space to do that consistently, to specifically talk about senior needs, would have a high impact. Some programming recommendations include offering programming outside of the 8 to 4 hours to accommodate folks that may be working still and people that have other responsibilities. And also adding programming outside of the physical building. Stella mentioned the stigma that some people have about being called a senior, and we think looking at programming opportunities outside of the walls of ASAC could invite people to join and actually come to the center later on. There are opportunities to promote and maybe even encourage ASAC volunteers to get involved with other offerings that community organizations have. So Community Action of Skagit County has transportation that they offer for seniors, as well as in-home help, which were 2 needs that we heard about frequently throughout the process. And we also think that there's a great opportunity for, volunteers and for others to continue to share feedback with Skagit Transit as they consider changes to fixed bus routes and potential microtransit options. Testing creative marketing strategies to encourage participation in events and different programming will always be effective and will go a long way here to make sure that people are aware of what's offered at ASAC, and to build a consistent feedback system so they can continue to know what's working well. And that would be supported by potentially investing in an automated check-in system to better understand who's visiting the center and potentially target programming. Thinking a little bit further out, so 2 to 4 years potentially, the highest recommendation here is around hiring additional staff. And we think even one additional staff member could make a huge impact. So the first suggestion here is potentially a volunteer and community partner coordinator. So having a formal role to coordinate with other community organizations serving senior needs, and to help coordinate the many dedicated volunteers that are at ASAC all the time. So to be able to amplify their impact potentially by supporting other community organizations. Hiring a resource coordinator would assist with kind of the role that the center's already playing, which is resource navigation. So potentially having somebody, even part-time as a one-stop shop, would be helpful for people that are not even coming physically into the building, but that call the center and ask for support. And then lastly, there's a continued opportunity to contract with staff to offer evidence-based programming like chronic disease self-management or other similar community needs and based on feedback. So we'd love to hear from you and answer any questions that you have about our recommendations or the project.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. And before I turn it over to council, I'm sure they'll have questions or comments. Thanks again to the foundation. Again, without your support, we wouldn't be able to do this. And really thanks to all of you, especially some of you are in the chamber tonight for the input. I mean, that was a really incredible response rate, because we can't get better unless we get that input, and really good suggestions. In fact, as I was looking through that short-term list, I feel like we've already hit a couple of those right away. So that's exciting. So, all right, with that, I'll turn it over to council for questions, comments.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I had a good opportunity to review the report as well. One of the things that I was really struck by is I feel that a lot of the suggestions, the action items to be implemented are things that we as an organization kind of had a really good feeling were already there. Things like lack of transportation, need for more transportation. I don't think there's been a single meeting that I've been in where we have not voiced that transportation is definitely a barrier for folks to come to the senior center. So I guess one of my questions are there any, will we be getting any more kind of like very specific next steps that we can take to kind of implement some of these strategies, or at this point in time, is it kind of up to us as a group to decide these are the next steps we're going to take to implement?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question, council member. If you've read the report in the recommendation section, we outline each recommendation and kind of base it on this, is it short term, is it medium, is it intermediate term, as well as what priority it is, and give some background information for why we had that recommendation. And we worked closely with Carl to actually consider those as next steps. And so the report is close to final as is, but I hope that there's enough information there for you all to work as a group to talk about next steps in more detail than what's in the report.
Okay. And then just a couple other things that I noticed is the assessment also kind of noted that there's certain populations like elders from the Samis Nation, Hispanic senior community that are kind of underrepresented at ASAC. I hope that we as a group kind of look maybe a little bit beyond general marketing and do a little bit of specifically targeted marketing to try to bring some of these groups in. You know, we're very fortunate to have a foundation that has contributed a lot to the needs of the senior center. You know, at a time when city budgets are really pressed, really stretched, it's great to have a resource like the foundation to be able to help offset a lot of those costs that are coming up. One of the other suggestions that I was really interested in, and also one that we have talked about on the board, is that implementation of a better check-in process for visitors that come, because I think at the end of the day, the suggestions that we put in, what we try to do is really only as good as the data that we have. So I hope that we as a city, as a foundation, really look to implementing that as one of our first steps, because I do think that will really help us gauge where we need to go the rest of the way.
Yeah, you'll notice that that's on the short-term recommendation. Some of that work has begun, and we've got a key volunteer that's helping us navigate that, who worked in that professionally for many, many years, finding the right systems to connect us with actionable data. So we've been talking to some people that are using similar systems just to find out what their feedback is. And that work is continuing into the summer. So.
Right. And then just my last question is, I was just curious, and I missed it in the report, although I'm sure it's in there. How many respondents did we get in total when we sent out that assessment?
So we did 2 separate surveys. One was in the senior center. We had 317 that responded to that one. And then the community assessment was 881, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Maddie. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. It's good numbers. Thank you.
Yeah.
So which represents, as Maddie mentioned, 1 in 20 seniors in Anacortes. So we feel that's a pretty good representation. And thanks to some of the people here in this room that literally got in we played clown car and went around the city and handed out surveys and, did some the old-fashioned way, and we were very effective in that way. So.
Mr. Walters.
The report notes that a third of our senior households are housing cost burdened. That's a stat from our housing action plan. It also notes that not very many seniors take advantage of the scholarship opportunities. I'm wondering, is there any data that's not in the report or that I didn't see related to how much interaction the senior centers got with the seniors that are housed at, say, the Anacortes Housing Authority or the other tax credit properties around that I think disproportionately house seniors and maybe present a good opportunity to connect people who maybe don't have good transportation or maybe have other reasons they're not currently interactive with the center. Do you have data on those kinds of populations?
I guess I can take that question.
Okay.
No, we don't have data that kind of tracks who lives in assisted housing. But it's an opportunity potentially for marketing and that
Maybe just
resource navigation role.
Some targeted outreach.
Yeah, potentially some targeted outreach. And we know that a big role that ASAC plays currently is resource navigation. And so making sure that those buildings have, resource sheets and that they know about the center and opportunities, I think would be a great opportunity.
And I just know from experience that we do have people that represent, that do live in some of those complexes, and many of them, on a monthly basis, they'll take, hard copies of our newsletter, for example, and distribute them into their buildings. So that's the marketing piece that, that is happening and has happened for a long time. And that said, though, I think what you mentioned is accurate. I know that there are barriers to participation, even though they know what's going on, whether that's transportation or other things that are a barrier to their participation.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Hubick?
Thank you. Are there any other municipalities that you've done similar studies for, and do they have other great ideas or programs that we could borrow inspiration from?
Yeah, Berks has done a fair number of these types of assessments for other cities. I will say that each city is quite unique and each senior center is unique. So Anacortes, in comparison to some of the other cities we've worked with, generally the senior community is more well off. We found that both in the community profile work that we did, looking at demographics and income, for instance, as well as responses to the community survey, and also just the resources that you all have used to support the center as well as the foundation is quite uncommon. So the center being able to offer the number of programs, the resource navigation, the staff, Anacortes is quite well off and to be served by the senior center. So typically, you know, I would say the recommendations might not translate, but we did review our past reports and information to inform this process.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, thank you all for the report as well. And I was actually curious, or I was thinking about the answers for why certain folks or even populations don't necessarily participate. And it had me also thinking about the look to investigate activities that could take place outside the senior center. I think, but correct me if I'm wrong, there may be some activities that take place outside, maybe like hikes in the forest lands, but are there specific activities, what kinds of activities under consideration, and are there insurance considerations as well for that sort of thing?
So the hikes, we promote Friends of the Forest. They do senior hikes one every month. So that's a great partnership, again, a good community partnership that gets people out and about and moving. We have done travel programs in the past. COVID kind of took that away from us, the vendor that provided that opportunity. We do work with Oak Harbor Senior Center. They have a travel program and they have a Marches Point pickup, so they're willing to facilitate that for travel to, within the state, Leavenworth, Seattle for baseball games, things like that. And then we're part of Parks and Rec, so we also have other opportunities. We've got an in-house, Steve Phillips, who's one of our maintenance workers. He's also a birder, so he does some birding outings and has done a couple for us just in the last month or so. And this particular target market, if you will, was people that are, low vision groups. So we've had those opportunities out in our forest lands. Again, no cost, local, and we've had a very good response to that.
All right.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
One more thing. So one of the things that I thought was really interesting, probably most interesting me to the entire report, was it clearly identifies that the term senior can be a deterrent for younger or older adults. I'm reminded, and Councilmember Walters, take note, we'll be on this graph in 10 years. So, just saying. But
Some of us might be there already.
But might be there already, sure, But I also am just kind of wondering along the lines of Councilmember Hubick's comment, have there been any, I'd be interested to see from other senior centers that you've done maybe similar reports with, like how they're getting around that stigma or how they're using it to attract some of the younger seniors or pre-seniors to the center. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, there's actually a nationwide conversation on this very question, specifically whether senior centers should rename their centers as a community center or a community center for older adults. And unfortunately, it's split in terms of opinion. So some folks say that would help reduce stigma and get people in the door, while importantly, other people say that it helps seniors identify the resources that are available to them. So we know Anacortes, people consider retiring in Anacortes, they're going to Google the senior center. And it will pop up. So if it was called something different, they might not be able to find it as quickly. And just with, of course, a rebranding, there comes a host of other kind of challenges there. And so that didn't feature as one of our recommendations because of the conversation, but the senior center is reaching a lot of folks currently. We also know that there's a strong network of faith-based institutions and other organizations that people are turning to for resources. And I think that that's a good thing. So, the senior center doesn't have to serve every older adult in Anacortes if they're going to the elder resources at the Samish Nation, for instance. They actually have staff that work directly with their elders. So there's opportunity for more outreach, of course, and for that resource sharing. And that's why our recommendation is really around partnering more with other community organizations and sharing what everyone is doing and how they're reaching and supporting seniors. But yeah, there is a national conversation there, and not a clear answer.
Thank
And
you.
I'll just jump in here to say also a lot of our recommendations around sort of what Maddie was touching on with partnerships are so that we can familiarize seniors with ASAC outside of those four walls through offsite activities, partnerships, any chance to familiarize the community, and hopefully that will warm them up to programming.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
And I think that's an important point. Rather than changing the name, we can reach out to people outside the four walls of the center and then bring them in. I wonder, I think dovetailing a little bit with Mr. Fantini's earlier question, what's next for this? Carl, you had mentioned the comprehensive plan. Some of these recommendations might work as goals, objectives, or policies in the update to the comprehensive plan. Some of them might not. One that's just sort of barely touched on is that eventually we run out of space in physical space in the building. And one potential solution to that is to do more activities that are more appropriate outside the building somewhere else. And I could see a lot of value in that. But have we evaluated whether that's enough? Like if we do move activities that don't have to be inside the building to somewhere else, then is there still enough space inside the building, and for how long? Because if not, that sounds like a capital facilities plan need, at least, if not a project. And then how do we address the other recommendations?
Sure. So to the capital projects, we've talked a lot about programs, and those are important, but the capital piece is also important. We have a short-term project that we're working with the foundation, right now, and that just gives us another couple hundred square feet, essentially, moving some office space around and creating an additional space for the short term. If you look at the full report, and I think you all have had access to that. In the full report, a longer-term vision would be like what you're saying, potential. We have a cutout in the back of the building, if you're familiar with the building, just off the great room or the lunchroom. That would add about 900 to 1,000 square feet. It would be a chunk of change to make that happen, but we do have limited, albeit limited, we do have some space to expand, and that could create more opportunity for a variety of things, additional lunchroom or exercise space. We haven't developed that plan, but those conversations have begun, and that would be a little bit longer term decision, probably 5 to 7 years in that time frame.
And I guess as just an example of what we might be looking for as we complete the comprehensive plan update this year is that forecast of need. When would that space be essential to continue the same level of service, given the increased number of visitors that we expect? That 8,000 additional seniors by 2050 is a significant number. So what's that forecasted need? And then later on, probably not within the next 6 years, for the 6-year project plan, we would need the project as well. But making sure that we have the forecast within the comp plan, I think it will be essential so that we're adequately predicting that need.
I'll just add here that we did look at kind of other spaces that are available in the city. And so, yeah, a lot of our short-term recommendations are around programming. But if you all find that, programming outside of the center is successful, for instance, there is room to capitalize that and potentially rent other space, utilize other spaces that Parks and Rec is using, hosting activities outside. Just knowing how big a capital campaign would be and that it's kind of far off into the future, I think that there are a lot of other short-term creative solutions that could be looked at first before considering that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great discussion. And on the outreach thing, I know every time I get the senior center newsletter, I always say if we can get that into somebody's hands, they can find something that is interesting to do there. So I know we're taking that point to heart, getting that outreach, because it's just incredible all the different programs that are available there. And thank you, Carl, for all the work that you do there, and for everybody who supports our wonderful senior center. Appreciate it. Is there anybody that wanted to make a comment on this? Okay, sure. Come on up. Yeah, you got to come to the mic. You got to come to the microphone and say your name and the city you live in for the record. Yeah, there's a cost to making public comment, but we want, but we're happy to get it. So just name and city.
This time it's not about mental health, so I'll get you the next time.
Okay.
I have a
Name and city you live in, please. First.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sharon Watson, Anacortes.
Thank you.
Volunteer at the senior center. One of the things that I feel like we passed over quite quickly was the issue of transportation. That's one issue. The second one is spaces in Anacortes. I thought that there is talk, of course, I've been to that meeting about the art center that's being planned, and I thought that there was going to be some work on a center for our younger generation. And so I'm a little bit confused about where you want to pull people and how to do that. And to get back to the transportation issue, if you have people, yes, we have a high income here, which is very nice and lucky, but that means that those people who might go to the senior center have other opportunities, driving anywhere in the state. Getting back to the issue of transportation, we may be able to get into the hands the newsletter of those people living in lower income housing, but if they can't get there, why have we skipped over the whole issue of transportation? Because that also affects not just older adults or seniors, by the way, I don't mind being called a senior, is that also will affect our younger generation who can't get places. I have a lot of things to say about all of this.
Well, we'll give you 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm probably close. So I just think that we may be putting the cart before the horse on some of these things, because we do have a lot of activities, and it would be great if we could get people there if they had a way of getting there without funds.
Gotcha.
I think I'll stop there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
input. And I've got a hand raised online, Mr. Kennedy. Yep. And I don't have the power to unmute your microphone.
You are now unmuted.
Kurt, if you can.
I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, Kurt Kennedy, Anacortes, and I am a board member. And while it's greatly deserved, there's been much praise given on the foundation. And but the foundation is largely a funnel for the funds through the fundraising that we've done. But the funds are coming from the people of Anacortes. And I just want to say thank you to the people of Anacortes for making all this happen. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. And yep, come on up. Yep.
Thank you. Xuan Mu, Anacortes. Thank you for the presentation, and the question for Berg's consulting team. And do we have the age distribution profile of the surveyed audience to match the seniors in Anacortes in the city? That's question one. And number two is, do we know what's working well currently, and what are the programs people like, and what's not working so well, or the opportunities? And we had a bar chart earlier to show the frequencies by 4 age brackets. And it appears people between 55 to 64 would likely to have different needs than people 85 and older. So if the team has survey data looking at the needs by age brackets, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. If anybody wants to try to answer that, the first one, the matching demographics comparative, is that something that I don't recall that being in the study?
Yeah, I'll just
Stella or
jump in
Maddie?
here. Yeah, thanks so much for the question. So this was not a statistically valid survey, which
Right.
means that typically if like the city of Anacortes conducted a survey, you might hire a formal survey company and they would call people and send out mailers to their home address, looking to get a almost perfect match between the demographics of the city and their survey results. And they do a series of weightings to make sure that those match. We did not do that as a part of the process. Generally, we got a great response rate and the demographics generally match. But we'll be sharing the full report with all the folks at ASAC after this. We just wanted to make sure that there were no kind of additional questions or comments from council that we wanted to incorporate into the final report, but it has much more information and I think answers to some of the questions that were just asked.
Great, thank you very much. All right, council, anything else? All right, well, thank you very much, and appreciate it. All right, item 6B, this is a contract award, front load solid waste truck replacement. This is a discussion item with possible action, and Mr. Ludeman is already there.
Good
Whenever
evening,
you're
Mayor,
ready.
Council, and the public. Tonight we have just a standard replacement of our front load solid waste trucks before you for a price of $490,490.58. It's just a standard replacement for a 7-year life cycle solid waste truck. Same trucks we buy every 7 years. We have 4 of them in our fleet currently. It's a total replacement, so one will leave the fleet when this one comes in the fleet. It'll go into a replacement fund program, just like every other vehicle we buy these days. Any questions?
All right, council, questions? All right, motions perhaps then.
Mayor
Mayor
Miller.
Miller.
Mr. Walters?
Question.
Knew there'd be one.
How much, what's that?
I knew there had to be one.
How much more expensive is it this year than last time we purchased? And when was the last time we purchased?
So last time we purchased, I have one on order right now, actually, that we haven't received yet. It's been about 3 years. And I don't know the exact cost, but I think it was like $30,000 less than this time.
Oh, okay. Well, it was 30,000 less?
The last one was 30,000
Yeah,
less.
I was
Right, so
guessing
that's
for
not-
450, but
Yeah.
that was just going off of memory
Yeah,
on
I'm
council.
trying to remember. It was 3 years ago we ordered it, and it's supposed to show up here in the next few months.
Well, and 450 is earmarked here, and it's 490, so
Yeah.
ER&R fund is capable of handling that, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Fantini?
I had the same question, but unless there's any further discussion, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign PO 25-145ERR001 with Western Peterbilt, Inc. in the amount of $490,400 in the amount that is on the paper for the purchase of a front-load solid waste truck to replace truck ERR 5002.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Fantini, a second by Ms. Hubick to approve the contract as presented. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, Public Works Week, item 6C, contract modification. This is a FEMA coordination contract, November 2021, and this is an action item. Mr. Rayam.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Andy Rayam, Public Works Director. Before you is a contract is contract modification number 2 with Widener and Associates for support in navigating, and I do mean navigating, FEMA reimbursement for disaster damages. Disaster number 4635 damaged the Guaymas Channel Trail, created a sinkhole in the water treatment plant, and resulted in adding 2 feet of levee to protect the water plant from similar flooding events. Not related to this disaster, but this contract was also used to use Widener services for the Whistle Lake grant, which is a FEMA funding that the state manages, but it's all FEMA funding, so we did use them for that as well. The increase to this contract is $27,349.40, increasing the total contract amount to $86,717.80. And there's a whole nother contract next on the
Okay,
agenda.
questions for this contract? All right, motions perhaps?
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Hubick.
I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the contract modification with Widener and Associates under contract 24043 ENG 001 in the amount of $27,349.40 to increase the total contract price to $86,717.80.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hubick, a second by Mr. McDougall to approve the contract as presented. Additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Fantini?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is 6D. This is a similar contract modification. This is for a January 2022 event. Discussion or action item. Mr. Ram.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is a contract modification 1 with Widener Associates for support in navigating FEMA reimbursement for repairing damages to U Avenue Park. That is a name that it's not named yet. That's just what we're calling it in-house. It was damaged during the 2022 disaster. This location is also where the wastewater treatment plant outfall pipe leaves the island and enters the Guaymas Channel. The wastewater treatment plant outfall state permitting required the shoreline to be restored and establishment of public access. FEMA has changed course on this project. They do no longer want it to be an alternative project, and instead it's a permanent repair project. That shift made the cost increase of $20,484.95 to start over, increasing the total contract amount to $55,791.35.
All right, questions on this one?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
I have to ask. So just so that I understand correctly, this money, we are paying basically a consultant to help us navigate the process to get the bigger buckets of money for the reimbursement.
Correct.
So there, if for some reason, like how's that, do we have any sense of how that's looking? Because there's of course a lot of stuff in the news, a lot of stuff everywhere, and we're, I'm okay with approving these modifications because I think we really need to get that money. But do we have any sense of like, we might be getting closer, or what's your kind of read on that?
So we have received 19 million for the outfall project from FEMA. So it's been a pretty successful endeavor of the city to go after disaster funds from FEMA. Now the tricky one is alternative projects. Alternative projects is where, like, if you totaled your car, your insurance company gives you a check and they're done. You can keep the car, but they're not doing anything with that car ever again. So that's the same as an alternative project. Like Washington Park Trail is an example of one that we're still working through with FEMA. We're hopeful there, but we don't know for sure yet that funding will come. But the switching to an actual build project is more, it seems to be very more predictable, more realistic that funding will come without a lot of back and forth with FEMA. But yeah, FEMA is definitely all over the news. We're feeling it at our level. I would say that there was definitely a hiccup there for a minute where everything just kind of paused and it seems to be kind of rolling again. But that's just me reading the tea leaves from Anacortes at what's happening at the federal level. So
Okay, thanks. That was actually highly enlightening for me, so thank you.
And maybe I'll ruin it with commentary from my time on council. I had the same skepticism of these type of contracts, but I've certainly seen it pay off in huge amounts. I wasn't sure we were going to get a dime of the $19 million outfall project, and certainly the alternative project, even more complex, but they're very complex to navigate through, and to be able to have somebody with the expertise to walk you through to be able to find things like a sinkhole at the water treatment plant that we would have had to come out of our $1 million or so out of our own kind of out of our own coffers. I think it's worth it, but it's okay to scrutinize as well.
I could say too, for 2 years of doing this with this consultant with FEMA, I mean, I didn't know anything about FEMA when I started. It's still extremely complicated. I'm learning as I go, but having consultant support to navigate their processes and their kind of just how they operate is definitely helpful for me.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters?
It seems like on this particular item, the consultant, though, made the wrong choice as to what type of project this would qualify for. And now we need to pay them more to redo some of that work. Am I
So it's actually
characterizing that accurately?
Don't like throwing rocks too much, but FEMA changed their mind.
Well,
It
FEMA
wasn't-
makes the ultimate determination,
Correct.
but did they previously indicate that it could be pursued as an alternative project?
It was approved as an alternative project.
It was
yes.
approved as an alternative
By
project,
FEMA.
and they reversed their approval?
Yes, they did.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall?
All right, thank you for those clarifications. I move City Council authorize the mayor to sign a contract modification with Widener and Associates under contract 22-250-ENG-001 in the amount presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McDougall, second by Ms. Hubick to approve the contract modification as presented. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciac?
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Mr. McDougall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next and final item on our agenda is item 6E. This is an interlocal to remove City of Anacortes from an interlocal. This discussion and possible action, and Ms. Shu is already there, ready to let you know what that means.
Mayor, council members of the audience, in March, we entered into an interlocal with the cities of Burlington, Mount Vernon, and Cedar Woolley for indigent defense services. That allowed us to identify how costs would be allocated and split if we were to find one contractor to serve all 4 cities' indigent defense needs. We did go about and create a request for qualifications, and as we were putting that together, there was a concern that there might not be a lot of interest in the request for proposals that or qualifications that we were looking for. We were very happily surprised that there was a lot of significant interest in it. But one of the respondents specifically indicated that they were only interested in serving the needs of the city of Anacortes. And we are comfortable moving forward with that, are in the process of negotiating a contract with that law firm. But in order to be able to have Mount Vernon, Burlington, and Cedar Woolley move forward with their contracting, they've asked that the city of Anacortes remove itself from the interlocal. That allows all of the different cost-sharing measures to be reallocated and split amongst the 3 cities, and with the removal of Anacortes. So what I'm asking for tonight isn't necessarily a new interlocal, and there was a little bit of discussion back and forth about how we're going to achieve this, but it's actually an amendment to the interlocal, which has the effect of removing Anacortes from that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about it. It is a little unique, but I do think that we are on the right path moving forward.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
If we received multiple responses to the RFQ, and one of them indicated they wanted to work only with us, assumedly the others indicated they would work with all the partners, why are we choosing the outlier?
This is a law firm that does work on Whidbey Island, is accustomed to working in a very similar setting as what the city of Anacortes is, that those attorneys came and met with our public defender now, met with the attended court, met with the court staff, and was able to identify that this is very similar to the work that they're doing. There was a comfort level with this law firm moving forward.
Do they work for Oak Harbor or Island County or both?
Yes.
Both?
I think that I'm not 100% sure about one of them because I'm hoping that next week I'm going to be bringing that contract forward. So I'm not feeling real comfortable just sharing their name just yet.
Okay. If you're bringing their contract forward next week, then it sounds like we're pretty close to having a negotiated contract.
That's correct.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question. Is it premature to remove ourselves from the interlocal with the other partners if we don't yet have a negotiated contract with the other party? But sounds like we basically, I mean, the deadline for the packet is 2 days from now, so we basically do have a contract ready.
I feel confident that we're going to have a contract, that it will be ready to go and for next week's Tuesday meeting, yes.
Okay, and you'll also feel confident that we will like the price?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that I would mention is that once the request for qualifications closed, the 4 cities met, we reviewed all of the responses, and the other cities indicated, like, you know, we're supportive of Anacortes removing itself, you know, to be able to move forward in this direction. That makes sense. They could see that it made sense as well.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
Thank you for that clarification. That was one of my questions. You know, we all want to play nice in the sandbox, and just I'm glad to hear that they're supportive of that, even though I still think we would do what's best for Anacortes. And you might be saving this for your presentation next week, so if you are, by all means. But I'm just curious why they didn't want to work with the other cities.
I think that the capacity, they didn't have the ability, the capacity of staff to handle all 4 cities' cases, but they had the ability to handle the equivalent of Anacortes' cases in addition to what they're already doing. So it seemed like it was a intentional business move in responding that way.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
And we currently contract with somebody else to do the work at the jail. Is that right? The write-ins?
That is correct. And
who do we contract with?
Mountain Law was currently doing our JAWS hearings right now, and that will be included in the contract with the new firm.
Oh, so they will do that work. So they'll travel to Mount Vernon for that work.
Yes, they will.
Okay. I thought maybe the travel time was a differentiating factor, but sounds like they're okay with that component.
Yes, I confirm that.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
If there's no further discussion, I make the motion that Anacortes adopt Amendment 1 to interlocal agreement, an agreement between the cities of Burlington, Mount Vernon, Anacortes, and Cedar Woolley for shared indigent defense services.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fantini, a second by Mr. McDougall to adopt the modification to the interlocal as presented. Additional discussion? Mr. Franciac?
Mr. Fantini?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. No further business before the council. I'll adjourn tonight's meeting. Have a good night.